Hello, welcome to another review for Asian cinema season. In this video, Connie is joining me. We just got done watching Shin Godzilla, the 2016 film from Toho, and I believe it was the first Toho produced Godzilla film in at least 10 years. They made the original back in the 50s, and I think in 2014 was when they did the American reboot, remake, whatever you want to call it, directed by Gareth Edwards.
Has it been that long already?
Yeah, it was 3 years ago where we watched all three Godzilla movies, like just titled Godzilla. We watched the 50s original, we watched the Roland Emmerich film from the 90s, which hadn't aged very well, because I mean I saw it when I was a kid, and I soon realised how, people saying that that film was bad were pretty right to say it. And then we watched the new American one, which I really liked. I thought it was really good. A lot of people didn't like it. A lot of people were saying, oh, they cut away from Godzilla too much. It's like, well, it leaves you wanting more. I liked it a lot. This one, Japan kind of, going back to the classic monster that they created in the 50s, which was very much born out of the, the very recent and raw kind of scars from the atomic bombs that had been dropped in Japan in the 40s. That's very much what that original film feels like. It's this fear of nuclear everything, manifested inside this nuclear monster, basically. And they went on to do so many sequels. I think this is the 31st Godzilla film overall. And and usually it's Godzilla versus another monster, Godzilla versus this monster.
You know how many Godzilla movies they make?
How many Godzilla movies they make, yeah. And this one is just a standard Godzilla movie. It isn't a sequel. It doesn't reference anything that happened before. It's like, present day.
It's like a first Godzilla movie.
Yeah, it's a reboot, I guess is what you would call it. I liked it. It was a weird film. It feels like
very political.
Yeah, this is like 60% political thriller, 40% Godzilla movie. A lot of politics, and I kind of like that. It feels like it was a movie that was just fast-paced for 2 hours, but at the same time it felt slow-paced to me at times because it was really staggering out the Godzilla stuff. And there's so much information flying at you that you get a little lost in the dense nature of it. But a lot of it is done very well. I really like the way this film was directed visually. Just like when you go into a room and people are kind of funneling in and you just get like shots of like all these electrical sockets and like the chairs that, but just like you really feel the frenetic energy of the urgency and panic of these officials trying to figure out what to do about this monster that surfaced near Tokyo. So I really liked how they put all that together.
I like how we got into like they're thinking about the financial problems that will cause.
Yeah, it was
kind of, the first thing that happens is like, well, a tunnel is broken or like ruined.
Yeah. And
how expensive that's going to be. And then, well, what happens later. It's going to be a lot more expensive. It's just that that there are people out there who will think about these things before they go on to remove the problem or whatever.
Yeah, it tackles it very logically.
Yeah, and if it were to happen, that's probably what would go down.
Yeah. And I like that aspect to it. And there's that in the 50s version as well, but it's a different time too. So to see it in, even like a little thing where they're looking on Twitter and, they're like, oh, the news has already spread. Like, they just found out something about Godzilla and it's already leaked to social media and stuff. So that kind of the immediacy of information is really plays into it, which I liked. But yeah, it is a bit dense, maybe a bit too long for its own good. But I did like the way they set it up. The only thing, I mean, there's good, there's bad, and there's ugly. And the ugly is the first form of Godzilla that we see, which,
Boy, was it ugly!
They build it up, and it's like, we're not seeing the reveal yet. And I was thinking, okay, maybe in an hour we'll see him. And then out of nowhere, just this shot of
full frontal view.
Full frontal of Godzilla. And the face just looks like a
parody.
It looked like one of those
cartoons.
It looked like one of those little stuffed toys you get out of one of those like claw machines.
Yes.
Like it's like you're like, oh my god, I finally got one. And then you pull it out and it's like, oh, it's just this crap cheap toy. It wasn't like the movement was good, but the texturing was so like basic. Like it felt like a video game.
The eyes were dead.
And the eyes.
That's what put me off the most.
Yeah, the eyes were very just like
matte, non-moving, non-blinking, nothing. They were just.
It
was like a doll's head.
There was a close-up where you saw something going on behind the eye, but apart from that, it really looked like Like when you can just like stick an eye into a doll,
Yes.
you know, and just pull it out, just pop. It just looked like a button basically,
Yeah.
not an actual textured eye.
And the rest of the body looked good, and so I was surprised.
Well, no, I didn't think it did.
Compared to the eye.
Compared, yeah, but I still think
the whole head was just...
the texturing was just, it felt like something out of a 90s film or a video game, and that was a bit of a disappointment. However,
a bit.
And actually, when we were watching it, I was like, wait, maybe this isn't Godzilla, because it doesn't look like Godzilla, it's not moving like Godzilla, so maybe this is the thing that Godzilla has to come and save everyone from, because that's kind of what we're used to at this point in time, you know, however many years after the original, where Godzilla became the hero of these stories, you know. And even in the American version they did a few years ago. But no, Godzilla is very much the threat in this film, and I wouldn't call him a villain, but certainly a problem that needs to be taken care of. And then he evolves, and halfway through the film he emerges, and he is the Godzilla that we have seen before. And I thought he looked great in that iteration, I have to say. And that's why I was like, okay.
Well, his eyes were still there when you zoomed in. The same dead eyes.
No, they weren't as bad as the...
No.
But
they were still there. But they were smaller.
Yeah.
Because he got bigger.
Yeah, I just thought the look of him once he was evolved into that next evolutionary stage was great, and I think we were both in agreement that the nighttime sequence,
Yes.
when they drop all the bombs on him and stuff, and then that's when the blue spikes come up and he starts spewing out the radiation and the blue flame. That scene was
Purple
just...
in this case.
Oh, in purple. Colorblind, partially. Just incredible. Like, all across the board, the way that Godzilla looked, the way that it moved, the sound design of its screech, the music, as you...
The music just did the whole thing for me, because throughout most of it, the music was kind of like... I didn't really like it that much. The trailer music is great, so I expected more from this, but it felt like they didn't really put money into the music. And then, as his whole nuclear shit's going on, just like this opera, I want to say opera.
Operatic, yeah.
Like it's just this hymn in the background, and it's just beautiful to listen to, and it's beautiful to watch in a way compared to everything else that we've seen. And it's nighttime, so it's easier to make it look good, but the light just great, and the way the camera moves, like you have a close-up and then you have from far behind.
Yeah.
And it's just a contrast between something so, what you would say, terrifying, but also really brutal and stuff, and then something so calm to listen to. I just love that contrast.
Yeah, it works well when you do it in the right way, and
they did. And that was the only time they did it right, in my opinion, with the music.
What was terrifying about it to me was just how throughout the film up until that point we'd seen Godzilla kind of crawling over buildings, kind of knocking things over and stuff like that. But this was just flames erupting for, like, you know, in a mile radius in a matter of seconds, just this pure devastation when his purple flame comes out, and it just literally cuts through these buildings like butter. It was just such a, I don't know, this kind of primal fear that I had. It was just like, and I don't really get, not that I was scared, but it was just like...
I was more in awe.
Yeah, awe-inspiring, I was just about to say, but it was just like, it got me in my chest a bit, like, Jesus, like, this is pretty powerful shit, you know, and I thought that was by far the best part of the film. I liked the plan they had towards the end of the film, but I did feel like it dragged a bit, but I liked how they dealt with the idea of whether or not to deploy a nuke, which is what would be the next step if nothing else worked. And so I'll say that the American actors in the film were very poor.
Yep.
Really just not good at all. There's a Japanese actress who's supposed to be playing an American, and she's not very convincing in that either.
Yep.
I read that the actress was quite taken aback that she had to kind of learn English to the point where she had to speak all these lines, and that kind of shows.
It felt like she had memorized the words, like the sound of the words.
Exactly, yeah.
And she didn't know what she was saying properly.
Yeah, and
it was like lyrics to a song, and she was just memorizing it because there were some words and pronunciations that were left out in her sentences, but they put it in the subtitles, and so you could really hear when she didn't really say stuff right.
Yeah, and also...
Same with the guy.
And also, like, she would drop in and out of Japanese and English, even with just Japanese people, and that just seemed, like, odd. Like, I don't know why she was doing that. But yeah, so... I really liked it. There's flaws. I mean, some of the acting from the Japanese cast was good, some of it was bad. But overall, I think the main guy, Yaguchi, I think, kind of the main character throughout the film. I thought he was a really good actor. I thought he did a good job. And yeah, a huge cast as well, so many characters, but you learn to kind of keep up. You really have to pay attention to this film, I have to say. But I liked it a lot. Again, maybe a bit too long, but
definitely a bit too long for me.
But overall, I really liked it. It was good. I would definitely put it above the Roland Emmerich Godzilla. Obviously not above the original. I probably would prefer the American one just for how good the special effects are. But I did that middle section with the nighttime sequence was really just awesome. So yeah, it's worth going back to for that at some point. But the first form of Godzilla just really rough. Anyway,
we paused it after that. Let me just say
we have like no minutes left, so you have to be really quick.
When we saw the first form, I just looked at Luke like, "Is this real?
we both did.
We're gonna watch."
So a double take, like
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So there we go. That's our thoughts on Shin Godzilla. Oh, and a few things I wanted to add, but wasn't able to because the memory card ran out. I really liked when they would show the really long shots of Godzilla. Really gave you the sense of perspective, and apparently it's the biggest Godzilla ever in terms of like actual recorded height that they figured out. And it was all done with CGI. They did experiment with doing a man in a suit, but it just didn't really work. But they tried to animate it like it was a man in a suit, and they had motion capture as well, so I liked the movement of it. It was just that at the first stage where it just really didn't look good, but I loved the way it looked once it was fully evolved, and so on. Also, one of the directors, Hideaki Anno, actually worked on Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, one of my favourite anime films, specifically on the God Warrior sequence, which is quite similar in some ways in both visual and sounding from that sequence in Shin Godzilla where he is spewing out that flame in the middle of the night, like just that the raw power of that blast slicing through the buildings really felt like that sequence in Nausicaa. And funnily enough, the director of this film, or the co-director of this film, worked on Nausicaa, which is really interesting. I thought a nice connection there. And yeah, I think that's all I really wanted to add. But yeah, so there we go. On with the last few seconds of the original video. Or not. One more thing. Connie was talking about the music. I agree some of the music wasn't that good, but when they started piping in that original Godzilla theme, that was really cool. That's all I'm going to say. The music used during the nighttime sequence with Godzilla was great, like she said, the operatic stuff, but when they piped in that like, that was awesome. I really like that, so there we go. On with the rest of the video. Very good.
Ta-ta and farewell.
Ta-ta and farewell. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.
He's alright by me. Apart from the fact he throws cans and calling into a tree. Yeah, he's really cool. Yeah, he's really cool. But he's not quite as cool as you.